As a revolutionary, how do you feel about laws which would apply to a revolting group? Yeah, I'll say that. If Antifa, like, initiates violence at a protest, I think the cops are right to arrest them. Not because Antifa was wrong to do it, but because I want to live in a society where there is a ubiquitous expectation of legal punishment for engaging in violence. Because the alternative to that...
0% of you are subscribed. Fix that.
Rule utilitarianism is if you're not sure individual actions benefit you, so you do stuff that blah, 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 blah. No, rule utilitarianism is a little more complicated than that, but I roll it under act utilitarianism. So let me try to think of an example, okay? I'm trying to think of an example. What's a really, really good example here, okay? Contra literally said dressing femme was the most important part of being a woman. I would encourage you to work on your media literacy skills, because that is absolutely not what Contra said. Contra was using a dialectical approach to discuss the gender performativity theory as axed by Judith Butler, and the idea that presenting feminine was one of the most essential characteristics in achieving the social role of being a woman. That is not the same as wearing a dress makes you a woman. And Contra is not to blame for your poor media literacy, okay? Like, yeah, it's not her fault. Opinion on Gravity Falls? Gravity Falls is good. Okay. Okay, wait. I'll give you an example, okay? I'll give you an example, okay? Let's talk murder, okay? Let's say that you're a citizen, a random citizen, and you have info, you know this for a fact, that some guy is like a mafia don. This mafia don orchestrated your family's death. They thought it was a car accident. That's what they reported, but you know that it was they did something. They cut the brake lines, you know, and this mafia don, legally he's in the clean, but you know, so you go ahead and you kill him. You find a way, you kill him. Okay. So the question is, was that a morally correct action? Well, you could argue that it was. However, the man who did it should still be arrested. Why? If it's a morally correct action, arguably, why should he still be arrested? Are laws not us putting into writing our moral positions? Why? Well, the reason why is because even though that specific instance may have been morally justifiable, broadly speaking, you do not want to socially enable the idea that it is acceptable to murder people who you believe have committed crimes. That type of vigilantism is incredibly destructive to society. Now, in this instance, in this one specific instance, that was an okay thing. In that one specific instance, that was an okay thing. That was fine there. But broadly, societally, we want to disallow that type of behavior. So that is the act versus the rule. Does that make sense? Well, I hope it makes sense. It can be morally correct, but if he can't prove that within legal bounds society, he should go to jail. No. Even if he goes to a court of law and proves everything, even if he's able to definitively and factually prove that that mob boss killed his family, he would still go to jail. It doesn't matter whether or not what he did was morally correct, because the responsibility of the law is to enable rules that are good for society, not just in single specific instances. There are lots of examples of this that can get increasingly more nuanced, you know? Where some things can be individually acceptable but broadly prohibited. His jail time may be shortened, though. Sure, you could make that argument, because intent does matter with regards to culpability, and that does factor into legal punishments, but it remains something which we consider to be categorically wrong. Which is good. Can you explain how the two are really the same now, then? Because the rules that you enable through given actions are the same thing as the actions themselves. Do you think he was morally right? Sure, yeah. In an individualistic sense, if you don't take into account social rules, then sure. Sometimes the morally right thing to do is to break the law, even if the law itself is just. Even if the law itself is just, breaking the law can sometimes be morally justified. That's why morality and law aren't the same thing. But law is our best attempt at codifying the rules by which we believe morality should function. I'll give you another example, okay? Here's another example. Speeding is against the law. But you can certainly imagine there are some instances where speeding might be morally justifiable. There might be some immediately necessary thing that wouldn't exonerate you if convicted or arrested or whatever, but might make it to been the just thing in that case. And you could argue that in that case that the rule is wrong, the rule is immoral because it's prohibiting behavior that was individually defensible. But then you would argue, to what extent can the legal system reasonably distinguish between justifiable and unjustifiable acts of breaking the law? Sometimes they can't, and that's the key difference there. Sometimes the law has no way of determining whether a given thing is moral or immoral. Don't laws come from morality, though? Laws come from the application of morality that we believe best serves a social benefit, or at least that's the idea. Not always. You need a Philosophy 101 segment today? I don't feel I'm versed enough, and frankly, there's a lot of pressure on me right now to do this, like, super ethically consistent, like, holistic, all-in-one philosophy argument package for the stuff that I believe in. And it's frustrating because I feel like a lot of the people who are asking that of me, and I'm bitching about Destiny's community right now, are themselves engaging in some really fucking bad philosophy, but I'm the one being held to account for it because as a socialist, I'm the only one who has to be consistent, you know? That's the thing that bothers me a little bit. Doesn't mean that I'm justified in being philosophically inconsistent. We should all strive to be philosophically consistent, but bring in Abby for a guest philosophy segment. With respect, I don't know if what I'm looking to do or what I would be looking to do would be up Abby's road. Contra is also a philosophy major, but I don't know if I would want to bring Contra on for some super nuanced discussion on rural utilitarianism and acceptable behavior for etc. Blah, blah, blah. How could you justify a belief in moral error theory? I would have to be reminded what moral error theory is. I maintain the fact that I do not think meta-ethics is a necessary prerequisite for being an effective advocate for normative ethical positions. I don't think a person needs to have read Kant to be able to say that people deserve healthcare, you know. Yeah. As a revolutionary, how do you feel about laws which would apply to a revolting group? Yeah, I'll say that. If Antifa, like, initiates violence at a protest, I think the cops are right to arrest them. Not because Antifa was wrong to do it, but because I want to live in a society where there is a ubiquitous expectation of legal punishment for engaging in violence. Because the alternative to that could be very easily abused. If you normalize the idea that the cops can choose based on political affiliation who to arrest and who not to arrest, that is not going to play out to our benefit in the long term, okay? Trust me, Antifa is not going to be the group that gets preferential treatment in that regard, okay? We will not be winning that one in the long run. They already do? Yeah, they already do, and look how that pans out. They don't do it for Antifa, they do it for fascists. What about anti-fascist punching a Nazi? Well, if it leads to good outcomes, then I think it's a good thing. But I also think that you get better outcomes from a legal system that treats those things ubiquitously. I think in the context of a full, actually blown revolution, well, in that case, you're changing the underlying legal structure. Like, that would be your goal, right? So in that case, like, the law stops being relevant and you start talking about what society you're trying to build. Revolutionary action requires a lot of deviations from what you would consider to be morally perfect behavior. There are always growing pains when you change what a society is, like on a fundamental level. That's to be expected. Couldn't you make your same argument about Trump being banned off Twitter? Nope, because all Twitter was doing was adhering to their terms of service, which they already have, and there's no alternative to them having it. And also, we're talking about Twitter bans and not legal systems. It's okay, Chef, don't worry. Isn't error theory just all moral claims are false? I don't know. It's a complicated subject. Anytime you try to discuss stuff like this, it gets really complicated. But every time I talk to a philosophy bro, they're not interested in talking or educated. They're interested in epically owning me. And sometimes I feel like they fail, too. Like Rem. They go off acting smug about it anyway, so. Vaush, you should post the Rem convo? I did. That was like a year ago. Do you mean the Perspective Philosophy convo? That Perspective Philosophy convo didn't really end up resolving or addressing much, and then that guy went on to Destiny stream to, like, act like a total snake. Like, when he talked to me, he was charitable to me and shit-talked Destiny, but then he went on Destiny stream and shit-talked to me and sucked up to Destiny. Like, it just seems like clout sharking. It's, yeah, I don't know. I don't feel like I learned anything from that. Like, if you're a philosophy major, I should learn something from a discussion with you. Vaush, you do that to people too? I do what to people? Shit talk them? I think I'm usually consistent in my shit talking, am I not? Couldn't you reach out to one in good faith to review your positions and give an educated opinion? Yeah, of course. Obviously. I like learning. Guys, you've probably, I hope you guys have noticed, like, with regards to my content, I really don't get that ass mad if somebody comes on to educate me on a position and I change my mind on it. I just have to have my mind changed on it. That's the thing. When I change my mind on something, I want to be right, so I say the thing that I think is right. If you want an affirmation of that position, look at the GME situation with Destiny. Destiny lampooned a bunch of content creators, including myself, for bad takes on the GME thing, and I just immediately accepted it because I realized I was wrong. Often people will accuse me of being obstinate, but the only thing is, like, I just haven't been convinced that I was wrong, you know? Especially, by the way, moral realists talk about moral anti-realists. Holy shit. These people are so condescending. Vaush, do you do your own laundry? Yeah, I do. Cheesing the mini-boss? That was a pretty easy cheese. They say your walkback doesn't count because the damage was already done or something. Yeah, that's what I would call a non-consequential perspective on things. If your perspective is, they were already wrong, so it doesn't matter if they change their position to be right, then you have no business engaging in advocacy, and you are a clown, and you should put big clown shoes on to stomp around in. What a ridiculous fucking position. If you normalize the idea that it doesn't matter if people change their minds, why the fuck would people ever change their minds in the future? Why would anyone ever change their mind in a position if they knew they would be eternally held to the standard that was set when they had the wrong position to begin with? You completely disclude... Not only are you not being charitable to those people, you also prevent them from being right, thus causing more harm down the line. Ridiculous. But hey, man, if you're just super interested in harming the world, as long as it makes you feel smarter than socialists, yeah. Can we move away from this particular topic of conversation? Like, seriously. This is gonna go on forever. It's every video game stream, too. You know, okay, wait, sorry, I love you guys, but please, no super complicated conversations about real utilitarianism. Oh my god. Oh god. The people are gonna be to death of me. Are you lying to push your political ideology? About what? I don't think so. I've never said anything that I don't think is true, I'll say that much. That'll be my guarantee to you guys. I've been wrong plenty of times, but I've never said anything that I didn't think was true. Oh god, and the worms.